Buenos días a todos los asistentes a este seminario internacional. Queremos recordarles antes de comenzar que contamos con traducción simultánea y pueden encontrar, de hecho, en la barra inferior de su Zoom una opción que dice interpretación, donde tienen que seleccionar el audio de preferencia. Desde ahora en adelante, esta presentación por nuestra invitada, ¿cierto?, es completamente en inglés. Bien, entonces en la barra inferior, donde dice, ustedes pueden ver, dice interpretación, deben seleccionar el audio de preferencia. ¿Okay? Muchas gracias. Entonces, at CILED, as Soledad said, we're committed to school improvement, especially vocational education through innovation and leadership. And this is why we are delighted to introduce you to Joysy Jhon, a woman who for us is a reference in these issues, and to whom we also give a warm welcome, a digital welcome to Universidad del Desarrollo. And on behalf of all members of CILED, Fundación Chile-UDD, INACAP, Tecnológico de Monterrey, and University of Tarapacá. Joysy Jhon has a degree in computer engineering from Nanyang Technological University in Singapore, and an MBA with distinction from the London Business School. Previously, she was the Director of Education at Nesta, the Innovation Foundation in the UK, and the CIO of ADA, the National College for Digital Skills. She was appointed by the Department of Education to the EdTech Leadership Group and by the Welsh government to the Expert Panel on Schooling Reimagined in 2019. She left her banking career in 2012, where she was the youngest person selected to the JP Morgan Chase Future Leadership, to change education after spending a decade working across Singapore, US, and the UK. She's a specialist in leadership, education, social innovation, and entrepreneurship, among other things. And she's currently the CEO of O1 Founders, a UK school that seeks to improve diversity in technology and address the digital skills gap. So, Joysy, welcome digitally to Universidad del Desarrollo, and the platform is now all yours.
Thank you very much, Martin. Really delighted to be able to join you for this conference from London. Here it's wet and cold. Hopefully you've got much better weather there. Thank you very much for having me here today. I wanted to just share a bit about my journey, but also talk about, why it's so important to have an education system that is much more inclusive and innovative and fit for the future. I'm just trying to see if I can share my screen with you. Just give me 1 minute. It just says host has disabled screen sharing, so I'm not able to share my screen. Okay. So my personal journey has started in India, where I was born, and I was very fortunate that at the age of 17, I got a scholarship from the Singapore government to do my computer engineering degree in Singapore. So this was back in the 90s. And that opened up a whole world of opportunities for me. Not only did I get an opportunity to study computer engineering, but also had the opportunity to work across Singapore, New York, and London. So the first decade of my career has been in banking, and the next decade was in education. So I left banking in 2012 to set up my own venture. And along the way, I have set up a few not-for-profits in education. And not only currently I run 01 Founders, which is a coding school, but something that's very different in terms of being able to provide a job guarantee. I'm just being told by the host that I can share my screen. So let me just try that. Give me 1 second. Are you able to see my screen now? Okay.
Yes, perfect.
Okay, great. So as I was saying, education is what transformed my life, and that gave me the opportunity to work across 3 continents and work across different sectors, from financial services to education to the not-for-profit world. I've worked across a technical area. So my undergrad was in computer engineering, and then I did an MBA from London Business School. But along the way, the key theme has been about some of the challenges that women face and how we can make it much more diverse and inclusive for not just women, but also people from disadvantaged backgrounds. We know about the tech sector being highly male-driven, white male-driven, and the programs that I'm running now is around improving diversity in technology, but also building the confidence and the skills, not just the technical skills, but also the social-emotional skills, creativity, collaborative problem-solving skills among people. Some of the other challenges that women face are around adaptability across cultures and across industries, and building a resilience to failure. So, really learning from the challenges and continuing learning along their journey. You would have seen these headlines across different media channels around the digital skills gap and the fact that there aren't enough women in artificial intelligence, or the fact that most IT decision makers are struggling to hire tech talent to help their companies grow. So over the last 2 years, the pace of digital adoption has really accelerated with COVID-19. And more industries, so it's not just the tech sector, but every sector in the world today is adopting technology, and they need the talent to help them grow. So how can we build the skills that will help these companies grow? I believe that skills development needs to be much more innovative, inclusive, and fit for the future. Now, this is the traditional education model where somebody stands at the front of the class and gives a lecture, and people try to get that knowledge. But as we know, knowledge has a shelf life, and in a fast-changing world, we need to not just give people the knowledge, but also the skills to continuously learn, unlearn, and relearn. It also needs to be driven by the learner rather than just a teacher imparting knowledge. We need to build much more intrinsic motivation so that learners are excited and engaged and motivated when they're going through their learning journey. So what's my vision for education? I believe, as I said earlier, that education needs to be much more inclusive, and that means that we need to improve social mobility so that people from disadvantaged backgrounds can move up in life and that they have the economic opportunities for growing their career. It's not just about passing exams, but it's about increasing employment outcomes. It's about making sure that people are either working in a job or setting up their own businesses so that they are continuing to grow the economy. And it's about making sure that we have a much more fairer society where everyone feels included. And when I talk about diversity, it's not just about gender or race. It can be neurodiversity, it can be age, and even skills diversity. You need a wide range of people working together in the sector. I also think that education needs to be innovative. We need to find much more faster and efficient ways of delivering lessons rather than just a teacher standing in front of a class and delivering a lecture. Today, kids can learn anything by going online because there are lots of videos and lots of content that's available for free. It's also about reducing the long-term costs. With technology, we can do things faster, cheaper, and in a much more effective way. Just as I'm joining you remotely today from London, I hope that with technology, students anywhere in the world have access to the best teachers and the best learning opportunities. And it's really about making learning much more interesting and engaging. And finally, I think it needs to be fit for the future. Over the last 100, 150 years, education has remained the same. The model prepares people in a mass-produced manner where everyone goes through the same learning, everyone passes the same exam, and then when people come out of schools, colleges, universities, they don't have the skills to really thrive in a fast-changing world. And that's why we need to make sure that education involves students working on real-world problem solving. It needs to be much more interdisciplinary because most complex problems in the world today require people to work in teams and to solve these problems. And finally, it's about building the skills, knowledge, and competencies to thrive at work, but also in life and to contribute meaningfully to society. So what are the challenges that technology can help solve? So I see 5 really stubborn challenges in education. First of all, most teachers and educators are burdened with excessive workload affecting their well-being. And it is, most schools and colleges, at least here in the UK, are finding it really hard to recruit and retain teachers in the profession. Moreover, there is no one-size-fits-all learning for all because everyone learns in a different way. They have different skills and different needs. So the pathway to learn and progress in life needs to be much more flexible than what we have today. Thirdly, I think that the assessment model that we have, where we are preparing people in a very narrow manner to pass exam, inhibits both teaching and learning and sort of kills the joy of learning. Fourthly, I think it's really challenging for schools and colleges to share insights across different locations. So could we use technology to share learning and insights in a much more effective way? And finally, it's about the inconsistency of learning provision, because as we all know that schools that are in richer neighborhoods or are private independent schools have much more access to resources as well as provision compared to schools in poorer areas in the country. So how can we use technology to bridge some of these challenges that I've just mentioned? So I wanted to share a bit about 01 Founders and how we are addressing the challenges that we've just identified around education not really being fit for the future. We've got a peer-to-peer gamified learning model, which is powered by employers and shaped by technology. It's completely tuition-free and on campus, and we provide a job guarantee. I think we are the only training provider that actually provides a job guarantee because we believe that our success is dependent on our learners' success and them getting into paid employment in the tech sector. And it's about working on real-world projects with employers. So they're not only building the technical skills, but also creativity, collaboration, teamwork, and leadership skills. And we've got a sustainable model that not only trains people, but also hires them into tech careers. This unique model has already been proven in many other locations. It's a rigorous 2-year program where they have access to free learning, and they are 100% of the time immersed in coding and problem solving. They get over 4,000 hours of coding experience, which is completely free. This model has been tested in 40+ countries. And at the end of the 2 years of learning, they are completely trained as full stack software engineers. And finally, as I said, this is a sustainable model. Because this is completely free for the learners, we charge corporates through our partnership model, but also a recruitment fee. So there's such a huge demand for technical talent that when employers hire our learners, we charge them a recruitment fee. But we also deliver upskilling and reskilling opportunities to train their existing workforce. So the question is, what skills are really needed for young people to succeed in the labor market that is fast evolving? And you'll see that, some of the skills that are mentioned are around decision-making, around creativity or fluency of ideas, and active learning. Gone are the days when somebody told you what to learn, when to learn, how to learn. It's about taking control of your learning and really continuously learning to solve complex problems. It's about understanding the system and how the different parts interact. It's around originality and learning strategies, deductive reasoning, and complex problem solving. These are some of the skills that are going to see increasing demand up to 2030. So the question is, do you really think that automation will take your job? Now, many of you in the audience might think yes, and some of you might think no, it won't, because just as some of the jobs will disappear, there will be new jobs that will be created, and that requires us to continuously reskill and upskill. Now, what are the key barriers to upskilling the workforce for digitalization? I think there are 5 key barriers. First of all, it's the culture of learning. Most people think that learning is for the young, and once you've left school or university, you don't really need to learn. Whereas we all know that that's not the case. Throughout our lives, we need to be continuously learning. The second thing is people don't see a need for digital skills, or the motivation might be lacking. But we've seen over the last couple of years how everyone has had to adopt digital skills and build these digital skills in order to thrive in a COVID world. And I think even after COVID, these skills will be really essential to be able to progress in both work and in life. It's also about...
I'm sorry, but I'm afraid that the PowerPoint got stuck in the vision for education.
Oh, are you able to hear me?
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, but it's just the presentation, the slides.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry.
Are you able to see my screen updating now, or it's still stuck?
No, it's still stuck.
Oh.
So maybe it's better to put it down and try to share again.
Okay, I'll try that. Let me just do that.
Sorry about that.
No worries. Let's try that again. Is that working?
It's loading. Yeah, no, it's not working. Thanks.
Okay. Sorry about that. Like you can see, the challenges with technology is that it doesn't always work in the most efficient way, especially if you have poor connectivity. Apologies about that. Did you see my screen update?
Yeah, now it's working.
Okay, great. So I was talking about the 5 barriers to upskilling, and we talked about the culture of learning, motivation, but it's also about the leadership. Do you have the right leadership that really want to drive digital transformation? The other key challenge is around resources. It takes money and time to be able to reskill and upskill. And finally, it's about access to training. Most of the time, people can't find training that's relevant to their needs or that's easily accessible. So these are some of the barriers. And what can we do to address these barriers for upskilling? I think these are the key principles, these 3 key principles for change in education. First of all, it's about getting employers and the community involved. I think the only way to make education much more relevant is by having employers and the community involved so that they can contribute the projects and the challenges that they're facing and get the learners involved in solving these problems. The second thing is making it relevant. So rather than just getting students to learn the theory and pass exams, can we make it much more relevant to their lives and the current environment that they're living in? And finally, it's about skills development. So, the skills that I just highlighted, yes, there is a need for digital skills and technical skills, but we also need to build skills around creativity, collaboration, decision-making, problem solving. And these sort of skills can only be developed through practice. So these are some of the principles that I believe will help us address changes in education. So how can we make a difference? I think the first and the most important thing is to support learner motivation. Every learner should feel excited and engaged and energized as they come to learn, because when they're intrinsically motivated, they will be curious and they will want to find out more about the topic that they're learning and collaborate with others to solve the problems that they're facing. The second thing is around building both skills and knowledge. And as I said earlier, there's a limited shelf life for the knowledge. And, as technology is moving so quickly that in 5 years or in 2 years' time, even, like, there are new languages, new software, new technologies that people need to be aware of and build skills in. And in order to do that, it's about building these technical skills, but also building a culture of learning. The third thing, as teachers and as school leaders, it's about engaging diverse students, like really looking at what can you do to improve diversity and inclusion within your schools and colleges. And it's about using technology. We looked at some of the solutions or some of the one particular case study of 01 Founders, how we're using technology to help learners build technical skills, but also skills that are being required by employers. So if we can use technology to solve some of the challenges around teacher workload, around being able to collaborate effectively, then that just makes it a lot more easier. So rather than teachers having to manually mark things or to spend their time just delivering lectures, they can actually use their time to coach and mentor their learners and to inspire them rather than being bogged down by the admin and the manual things. Finally, it's about providing work experience. So learning has to be applied, and by getting your learners to have work experience, they can see how what they're learning in the classroom is relevant in the world of work. Now, we can't achieve all this together without working together. So it's really important that schools, colleges, the academic sector works with government and with industry to achieve greater impact. I think it's only by working together we can solve these huge problems in education and build the digital skills that are needed to thrive in a fast-changing world. So that's a really quick summary on why we think that education needs to be much more inclusive, innovative, and fit for future. Thank you. So please do ask any questions. I'm just going to stop sharing my screen.
Thank you very much, Joysy, for your presentation. We do have some questions, and I want to remember all participants that they can ask questions from the Q&A option in the lower bar of your Zoom. So the first question that we've got is that you talked about community involvement, and so how does this work in 01 Founders, and how can this be replicated in highly vulnerable and rural contexts, as most of the vocational high schools in Chile?
Sure. So the way we're working with the community is that we've built partnerships with organizations that work with disadvantaged or underrepresented groups. We've also built partnerships with one of the largest further education college that has about 30,000 learners annually. So it is identifying, which are the groups that you want to target. So for example, we've got a community partner that works with refugees, another one that works with women in tech. So by building these relationships and partnerships, we are able to access the community. I think the same model can be applied in Chile, where you're working with vulnerable or rural areas where, the local community understands their needs and they know what are some of the challenges they face. So by listening to them, by getting them involved in co-creating a solution, that's one of the ways in which you can get them involved. Now, in London, the challenges are very different from the challenges that rural areas or those areas that are seeing high levels of deprivation. Our aspiration is that we can use this model and expand it across UK and Ireland. And the next site is going to be in one of those remote areas rather than in London, because if something works in a rural and remote area, then it can definitely work in a city.
That's great, and we would love to have you here. So you have our doors open.
Thank you, and I'm happy to host you here as well when you're visiting. Please come and visit us on campus. Great,
I will. We have a second question here, and maybe it's related to what you already said. That so, what are the specific challenges that girls are facing? And maybe if you can do some kind of a comparison from the UK and other places, and how can we address them?
I think that's a really good question, because the challenges in UK versus the challenges in, say, Africa or in remote parts of Latin America will be very different. But I think if I look at it from a perspective of what are some of the challenges in the developed world and what are some of the challenges in the developing world, I think in the developed world, girls have lots of opportunities to access education. But there's still a challenge when it comes to role models in technology. So a lot of women tend to take humanities or arts or other subjects where they feel that they can see role models and that they are making a difference. Whereas when they don't see enough role models or people who look like them in technology, they choose not to study science, technology, engineering, and maths. And that's a huge challenge, because we need more people with these technical and digital skills. And if 50% of the population is not participating or not learning, then we have a problem. I think in the developing world, or in areas where they might not have access to education, or they might be afraid of their safety, girls face a totally different challenge. So in some places where girls are married off at a young age, or they might not even be allowed to go to school. So those are, a different set of challenges. So it is very specific to the context and the country that they are in. But overall, we know that by investing in girls' education, we're not only helping that individual progress in life, but we're also helping her family and society progress. So it's really crucial that governments and businesses work together to invest in girls' education, irrespective of whether it's a developing country or a first world country.
Thank you very much. Yeah, that's quite interesting. And talking about inclusion, we have another question here. And it says that how do you expect that the pedagogical nucleus, schools, classroom, and the challenges of social vulnerability in students can be faced? So, and do you find answers in technology and innovation?
So if I understand the question, is that whether technology can address some of the challenges around vulnerable students? Is that the question?
Yeah, I think so.
Technology can solve some problems, but it can't solve all problems. So say, for example, if there are students who have certain special needs, then technology can definitely help. So even for kids that are blind, or that they have special sort of learning difficulties, technology can help because, rather than, say, for example, if somebody didn't learn through the traditional way of sitting in a classroom and listening to a lecture, but needed a bit more help by going through the material multiple times, technology can help there, because there are these recorded videos that they can watch again and again and, reinforce the learning. So that's one way. Another way, I know is that now with special educational needs, technology can really help, whether it's by increasing the volume or by even for people who are blind, by having using solutions which translate what's on the screen into an auditory way. So there are things that technology can solve, but at the same time, it doesn't solve for everything. So for example, if there is a child who is in a very deprived area, having a technological solution is not going to solve that problem, right? They need to have the basic safety, basic food and care, home, and only when they have that can they be prepared to learn. It's the same thing, say for example, if it's an environment where they're not getting proper nourishment or they don't have a proper health, it's very hard for technology to solve the problem of kids not learning. But having said that, I think by using technology in a much more effective way, where humans are working alongside technology to understand specific needs that learners might have and how it can help them progress. So by looking at the current skills that somebody has and then seeing what support is needed and whether technology can provide that support for a child who's in a vulnerable environment or has special needs. So that's the approach I would take. But I would caveat it by saying that technology can't solve all problems.
No, that's perfectly fine. And in this understanding that technology is not solving everything, and it's not just for improving your chances in the job market. How can education through technology teach relevant skills to understand the cultural and subjective context where innovation are inserted? So a question of someone from the participants.
Yeah. So the question is, how do we use technology to not just improve your job readiness, but also how you can work more collaboratively and in an innovative way? I think it's by being able to connect across geographies, across disciplines, because with technology, today the things that we can do a few years ago we couldn't do, right? Like even live streaming a lecture like this wasn't possible a couple of years ago. So I think by using technology in a way where it's solving the real challenges. So for example, we know that everyone needs to have digital skills. They need to learn how to use technology to do their job, how to use technology to communicate, to work and to live, because now everything is moving digital. So, that's the basic. Everyone needs to build those basic digital skills. I think the next step is, how do you create solutions to the problems you face? And for that, it's not enough to have the basic digital skills. You need to have a higher level of technical expertise to be able to solve problems using technology. And that's where innovation and entrepreneurship comes in, like really understanding the problems that your customers face and thinking of how you can use technology in a useful way to solve those problems. So I think you need both the basic digital skills, but you also need the more advanced digital skills to build solutions and to create innovative solutions.
Thank you very much. We're receiving lots of questions. So, and now we have one from a vocational school teacher, David, who is asking, could you describe what a high school class should look like to meet the current requirements for this world that is coming?
That's a really interesting question, David. I think the classroom can be anywhere, right? I think one of the things is the traditional classroom of where a teacher stands in front of a class doesn't need to be there now, because you can learn from your peers, you can learn from each other, from experts, you can learn from books and videos and podcasts. There's so much content out there. So I think the notion of a place and a classroom is going to change in the new world. Learning can happen from your bedroom or from your home if you have a good connectivity and a device to access the knowledge that's there in the world. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is the notion of time is going to change in terms of when somebody learns. We have this fixed mindset that people enter education at a certain point and they leave education at a certain age. Whereas the world we're living in, people will have 100-year life with technology and with improvements in healthcare. So how can we use the time that we have and the technology that we have in an effective way so that you're not just limited to learning in the early part of your life, but throughout your life, you will go in and out of education where you are building new skills and learning new knowledge. So I think that's the second thing in terms of the notion of when learning happens. And I think the final thing I would say is that the role teachers will play. I think teachers will play a much more crucial role around inspiring, guiding, and building the confidence of learners rather than just delivering lectures and correcting exams.
And that gives us a lot of hope, but lots of challenges as well. So thanks for that answer. We have another here, and it says how to reverse the negative use that has been given to technology from social networks, especially among children and young people in the school context.
Yeah, that's a really important question because things around privacy and just online safety is a huge challenge. And if kids are not trained and if parents are not trained, then it's really hard to moderate. And we know that sometimes social media can be really addictive, and kids might use it excessively and not learn how to self-regulate and how to step away from certain situations. And I think that's where parents and teachers will need to play a crucial role to help them understand more about online bullying, cybersecurity, safety online, whom to engage with or not engage with on social media, and how to be able to switch off from technology as well, because I think kids need to be kids. They need to play and they need to, experience nature and be outside and not just stay behind a computer screen. So hopefully by having guidance from teachers and parents and school leaders, kids will build healthy habits when it comes to social media and interacting online.
Great, thanks. And I'm glad you mentioned school leaders, because we have now two questions about them. So from your experience, what's the role that school leaders play in enhancing student motivation and engagement, especially focused, of course, in innovation and technology?
I think school leaders have a crucial role to play because they set the vision and the strategy for how the school is run. So having a clear vision for digital transformation within your school and building the right capabilities. So providing opportunity for your school teachers as well as administrators to build skills and experience how technology can help, but also understanding what the challenges are specific to your situation or specific to the college or the context that you're operating in. So I think school leaders will play a crucial role, firstly in setting the strategy, secondly in building the right skills in their teachers and administrators, and finally in ensuring that they are making education much more relevant rather than continuing to do what has been done in the past.
That's great. And we have another question about school leaders, probably from a school leader, because this person is asking about practicality. So if you could give an advice to our school leaders today regarding how to start. So imagining that the school is not working with this kind of innovation or technology right now. how to start changing schools so they can get involved in technology and innovation, and what would you tell them?
I think that's a really good question. Thanks for asking that, because I believe that everyone, as long as they know where they're starting and have clarity on where they want to get to, then you can come up with a plan of how to get from where you are to where you want to get to. So that's the first thing. I think the second thing is building a network, so you can go a lot further together than alone. So could a group of schools come together and help each other to problem solve and think about, how do they set the right strategy? How do they engage with maybe other schools who might be slightly further ahead in their digital transformation? And secondly, and finally, I think it's really thinking about, how do you get resources? Because implementing technology, you need to ensure that you've got good connectivity, you've got devices, and that requires funding and investment. So thinking about how you can get that in order to take the very first steps towards helping your school go through that digital transformation. So it is a challenging journey, but it is doable. And all it needs is vision and support from a network of other school leaders who are also on that journey. And finally, getting the resources to make that happen.
So, yeah, that's great. And maybe a follow-up question to this: and how do school leaders can motivate their own teams? So not just students, but their own teams to get involved in this, because there's a cultural change in this, and of course, school teachers are meant to be part of it.
Absolutely, and I think culture and strategy and vision are really crucial, because one without the other is not going to work. And I think the teachers who join the profession, they join teaching, or they become a teacher because they want to make a difference in other people's lives, and they want to nurture future talent. And it's going back to that core purpose of why they became teachers, and helping them tap into their intrinsic motivation, but also getting them involved in problem solving and thinking about the solution together. Because if teachers buy into the vision, and if they feel that it's not that my job is going to be lost, but my job is going to become much more interesting. It's not about thinking, if I get involved in technology, then I'm at risk of losing my job. But if I get involved in technology can make my job a lot easier, and I can focus on much more important things around inspiring learners and helping them find jobs and making sure that the curriculum is relevant for employers. So I think it is a cultural change. You're absolutely right, but it is also getting the buy-in from teachers that this is going to make their lives a lot easier, and they need to be part of the solution.
Great. Yeah, that's very important, and I think that we end up this session with lots of not just ideas, but a bit more of a clarity on how to start this journey, how to catch up, if you want, for many of those schools that are not involved yet in this. But I'm sure that we're going in the right direction. So, Joysy, I want to thank you